Hi, Linda.
He's here.
Where's the baby?
Where's the baby?
Baby sleeping.
Congratulations.
Thanks. When's your turn?
When's your turn? He said. Working on it. Working on it.
Okay, okay, yeah.
冲凉呀！冲凉过后会讲，冲凉过后会讲，开心对不对？啊，开心对不对？啊，开心对不对？是宝贝，没开心？宝贝开心？你在看什么？陈男人是在看什么？哪里不是妈妈？
Are you back at work or what?
No, I'm home.
妈妈在哪里？
I'm yeah, but yeah, I'm working, but today I'm back home.
Oh, nice. Very cute.
哎，真可爱。
Yeah. That's the baby. So yeah, so how this works is I have to record through Google Hangouts, and then and sort of through YouTube. So but anyway,
Okay.
yeah, but that's how I record. That's how I record it.
What do you mean? It's live.
But nobody's watching it, so don't worry. It's the only way that I can record you.
Oh, through YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, so yeah, maybe do me a favor. Can you position yourself sort of in the middle? Ah, yes. Wow, perfect.
So you want me to look at the camera, right? Yes,
Yeah.
I'll look at you then.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So basically, I'm just gonna ask you.
Hey, what is this for, man?
No. Okay. So I'll say. Wait. Let me send you. Okay. Let me send you.
Something last time, right?
Okay. Yeah. So we started doing some videos. Let me just find them. Okay. So okay.
We'll be interviewed already.
Yeah, so we've done most of the videos, but we're thinking whether we can get any sort of design thinking people to just have a chat and just talk about, so let me just send this to you. So there are 3 links. I'll send them to your Facebook as well, just in case.
I got it.
For you to look at it later. I mean, yeah. But yeah, we've got 3 videos, and it's almost like a bit documentary style stuff that's going on.
Oh, nice production values you have here, mate.
Yeah. So it's okay. It's not too bad. So we try to sort of have this going and try to work something out. It's basically sort of like a really introduction to what design thinking is for designers, essentially.
Designers or non-designers?
I mean, non-designers. So we've got accountancy students which is quite important in that sense, because with your experience with the companies, you deal with a lot of non-designers. Yeah. So any insights that you have, anything that you've found that sort of works with non-designers, sort of say, design thinking sort of works for you in this context, in that context. That is what I'm trying to sort of get going in here.
Yep.
So that's the main thing, and the thing that I'm trying to sort of get across right now. So,
okay.
Yeah. So basically, the plan for today. So when you watch the videos later on, I mean, if you have time, you'll sort of get a sense that I've interviewed a few people and spoken to them. I generally asked them what they were doing, what's their background, and then I asked them sort of like, okay, how does design thinking fit in your practice? What do you do? Does it work for you? Does it not? I mean, what are the things that work for you? What are the things that you feel help? How it helps you in your work, your career, your experience with it, and then any specific methods that you're using in design thinking that has been useful for you. For example, like one of the guys, he's talking about like Man was talking about how he used user journey maps, how he used personas. Um, I have another guy, illustrator, so he talks about how storytelling helps to how he uses interviews as well in his work. So sort of like if any specific questions that you are looking at, I'm not a specific question, so if you have specific methods that have helped you, that's sort of what we're looking for in terms of yeah.
So you're looking for more talking about methods and how they apply to
how these methods work in the design thinking process, and for real world examples. So, I mean, if we're looking at like someone, what is the Big Four doing, and what does the Big Four use? How does the Big Four use design thinking? Is it all just about finances and auditing? Or has it started to move outside of that realm? And what are the methods that they've used to sort of better understand their users? So yeah, I mean, a bit of a catch up to sort of see what you're doing, but so the purpose of the video also is understanding how the methods have worked for you, and were there any case studies that you've done or work that you've done that sort of specifically highlights? Oh yeah, we've done design thinking. It's been good for us in this way, in this context, on this point.
Yep. I have an example.
Yeah, cool. Very good.
Yeah, cool. So when you're ready, we can start firing.
All right, cool. Okay. All right. So I guess I'll just roll off some questions. We'll take your time to answer them so that when we edit the video, it sort of crops easily. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to answer straight after I sort of reply to you and things like that. Okay. So I guess the first things first is can you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do? If you want to talk about culture creatures, that's also fine as well. But sort of a quick introduction of who Ching is and what does Ching do.
Yep. Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm Ching Tan. I am an industrial designer as well as a design typologist. Some could say I'm service design, UX design, all sorts of design and research and all put together. So how I got to where I am today is I first started off with a background in industrial design. So that's designing anything from mobile phones, TVs, anything that is 3D you can hold with the hand or up. So the idea is that first doing my undergraduate in design, I then worked in China for a little while in a design agency, went back to Australia, and I got my master's in design anthropology. And since then, really being able to move and work in different types of projects, from designing a call center conversation. How do you enable call center staff to have better conversations with their clients so that their clients can feel more confident in buying insurance, all the way from designing a cash flow management education program for the Australian Tax Office, all the way through to designing how the Department of Health and Human Services reprioritize Aboriginal funding. So I guess the different types of work that I do today. So I'm currently now at PwC Indigenous Consulting, and we are a separate entity organisation that's part of the PwC network. We're 51% owned by our Aboriginal co-owners. And yeah, we work on a lot of meaningful projects which hope to inspire and drive meaningful change for Aboriginal community, and also we do some innovation service design projects as well. So yeah, so it's quite different what I'm doing now in terms of, you know, back from my original degree. And the tools and the things that the tools and the methods that I do use now can be applied across through different ways, different sort of areas in design. And yeah, I think it's a really exciting space to be in terms of design. And yeah, that's me.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's a good intro. So currently, or previously, when you were, in some of the projects you've been working on, can you sort of describe any of the projects that you use design or design values to, in a context that isn't necessarily associated with design or outside of the typical design realm?
Yeah, so sometimes a lot of different types of projects that we work on, that I've worked on in the past, traditionally has not been a design project. So one of my initial projects that we looked at was one of the first project after I came out from my degree was actually looking at the strategy of how do you sell more internet merchant accounts for Commonwealth Bank, right? And it's more of a strategy thing around a business strategy thing around how should they position to sell more internet merchant accounts, right? So you need to have a merchant account to be able to collect online transactions, right? So it's a sort of a back end system, business to business thing, right? That the bank is trying to sell more of, and what's interesting about that is there's no real touch point or engagement. It's a service offering that people just sign up to. That even that process in itself, looking at it from a design perspective or human-centered design perspective around understanding the user's needs when they go through the journey, how they make a decision, all the way through to when they fill out a form. To be able to understand and map that experience is really important, because what we found out was, even though this is a thing that people sign up to, that they only sign up to once and they pretty much, after that's done, they just pay over it, we understood that this is the last thing that people are aware of, and it also links to other payment platforms. Like, if you're taking online payments, you might also be having a bricks and mortar store. But that experience for you, because people always want to get their website up first. Then they think about, okay, I need to collect payments. But then after that, the last thing that they leave to at the end is the internet merchant account. And what that is part of the sequence of events that happens in an experience to then go, help people identify that that this thing happens, and then on the last day when the website wants to go up, this thing falls. They always fall down on this thing, and it takes a while to get the bank to do all that type of stuff. So what we did for them, we just helped them strategize how they could go in the market and create a fast track process for customers so that they can move this thing really quickly. We sort of prototyped or use design thinking in terms of ideation with the group to go, this is the experience, what people are going through, how do we make things better? We've developed a sort of entry website for people to understand what the process is like in terms of payments, to understand things a bit better. And then what that did led to an increase of new signups in merchant accounts. So, traditionally you might think this is a strategy project, right, around market and positioning, but actually if you think about it, if you think of from an experience perspective, mapped that experience, did some modeling around the experience, modeling or journey, then you understand how things happen in the sequence of events, which relates to pain points that the user experiences. And then you can then come up with solutions to how to change your strategy, reposition yourself, or change the experience. So that's one way of looking at things where you might get a different set of strategy if you looked at it from a sort of a business improvement process or whatever. But if you're looking to gain, really understand what the customer's needs are, you sort of need to do that on the ground research, which is quite inherent in design thinking, human-centered design processes that we see today.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And that was the first project that I thought like, wow, this stuff actually really does work, because at the end of the day, you're trying to understand people's needs, and if you identify barriers of what they are, then if you help unblock them or make the experience more desirable, people will come and buy it. There's a natural flow-on effect to that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that actually does describe the whole process quite well. You talk about automation, talk about user research, talk about understanding human needs at the core of design thinking. But for example, this project, was there any specific method that you thought really sort of showcased how a design process is useful in a project like this? It's things that designers typically take for granted or non-designers don't know about.
I think the key thing about doing design is being able to first do the research, understand, go out and talk to people, go sit with them, to really understand how things really are as a small business for these guys, right? So I think what's really interesting about that is that you're able to being able to understand it, but the next part is actually being able to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was, for this project, I just sketched out a journey map. Like, there's many different types of journey maps, right?
Yeah.
But if you understand it, the core principle of a journey map is tell an experience in a story type fashion, which a sequence of events happen, which leads on to another sequence of events, which has an impact on the user experience. Mm-hmm. So the reason why you tell it in a journey is in a linear format is it's easy for people to understand, because then they understand the relationship between what happened, right, to what the emotional experience is, to the pain points. So for this one, it's really easy to be able to tell that. And so from there, once we're able to, I pretty much drew it up. It's just sketched it up really roughly, and we used it as the core to be able to link. What it does is it rather than people can tell stories with like PowerPoints and all that stuff, but you put a picture, a sequence of events up, people can always relate back to the sequence of events, because it is what has actually happened. So we used that journey map, and we were able to do ideation sessions off the back of it. So we tell the story and we go, okay, here are the pain points, and then we went all the way from having what happened at that specific point. How do we come up with ideas to solve that situation or that problem? To then go, we collected how many different ideas. So this project was in the fuzzy front end of research. So it's pretty much, once we did the ideation, we were going to do prioritization and all that type of stuff, or prototyping, but we only did it that far. But we were able to get the stakeholders there involved, and they sort of, they were there with us, telling the story, showing a journey map, getting them to being able to facilitate a sort of a ideation session with their own ideas and also ideas from other stakeholders. What it helped do is helped create the focus for people to start from a place where it is underpinned by actual data and user research, right? And that's what I think that's like being able to translate what you see in the field, to then being able to do something with it, is the value of that process, I think. And you can always start from a different way. of, you might have a hypothesis-led approach where come from an informed place, or an SME might come from an informed place, but you're just validating and your understanding of what user needs are through prototyping. And I think I've done that with another project that I think was really interesting, was when we designed a conversation for an insurance company where I was part of a customer experience team there.
Mm.
So that was interesting in itself, because when we did that, like, how do you design a new conversation that is going to be rolled out through 200, 300 call center staff for nationwide in Australia? For it's like it's sort of a transformational change, because then they have to start thinking about a different way of transforming their behaviors, because they're having a conversation with people. So even that in itself was like, how do you like, we went into call centers, and we went to branch offices and just watched people and to have their conversations. And from a design process, I think the whole mapping part of it is really important, because when you're blueprinting or mapping things, you're trying to understand how this whole conversation takes place in terms of the patterns that people have. And then from there, you're able to dissect it and structurally understand what's really happening in a conversation. And there you can then go. You can some of it might be quite obvious in terms of structural things, but some of it might not. So it depends on the type of project. But I think starting from the ground, the research is really valuable, because you are able to filter out what's really important for people and what works. Yeah. Because you're starting from users' needs. That's the most important thing.
So I guess we're talking a lot about users, which is important. Within the industry, for example, when we look at like your Big Four, your KPMG, PwC, is it something that's a hard sell for businesses to spend their time, or SMEs to spend the time, or insurance companies to spend the time to do the user research? And does it take much convincing for them? If it does, then how do you overcome that?
It depends on the organization and where they've come from, and their experience with it. Unless you have someone that has a design background in a really high position, it's up to the design team to be able to facilitate that process. So, because a lot of people don't know, they don't understand they don't understand the value of. They do understand, but they don't really get it. Right? So, if you're saying, people might, misconfuse you, but do you just go and watch people all day? Or do you go and just talk to people all day?
Yeah.
But there is value in being able to interpret insight, and there's a skill and art, and not art. It's a skill. It's a science, right? To be able to interpret, understand behavior. The reason why we do what we do is because if we were always to do focus groups, people would always be saying the same things, right? Understanding behavior is what we do, is actually going to observe to try to understand what people said. Does that correlate to what people do? Then to what people feel, to what people think. So from that we are able to make meaning based on our understanding of what's contextually happening around them. So a really interesting thing about that is part of the one of the projects around designing a user interface for selling insurance, right? When we went out to observe people, we were trying to understand how the interface impacted on people's conversations, right? If I'm the customer, if I'm the seller and you're the insurance person, the client, right, that wants to buy, first come in, you want to renew your insurance, and I say, "Hi, Nicholas, how are you going today?" And then what I'll do is I'll look on the screen, I'll put your numbers in, I'll put your details up, And what's really interesting is about the figures that the thing that shows up is what it does is it shows that the number of insurances that you have with me, right, in a list format. So it might say home, you're with me, contents, you're not, like it doesn't have contents, car maybe, right? And because it's in a list format, how the screen shows impacts on my behavior to you, because as an insurance seller, I'm just reading through that list from top to bottom, and I'm just looking for opportunities to cross-sell you by having the things that aren't on my view, right? So how that impacts that screen, how that impacts on me as a service consultant is it is reinforcing the value of just trying to cross-sell you a bit more. You know what I mean? And so what we've thought of that is like having a complete customer picture of, you know, framing things up differently, so it doesn't have that like it doesn't force that behavior on on consultants to have a better conversation about you, right? So that's the reason why we do the observational research, is that when we were in the room, we saw them read down, and then we went, okay, why are you doing that? And you ask why, and then they're like, I don't know why, but that's what happens. You just read, and then that's how they form the conversation, and that's the value of doing this type of research. If you don't get to see the nuance on how artifacts, things that people use, things that people make around them, inform the customer experience. So, then you have opportunities to go, how do you change that? And then you're able to track down those. Like everything that's designed has some sort of value imbued to it, right? So, that's what you're seeing is like the value systems that are in artifacts, that are in structures, organizational structures, that are in workplaces. Some of it's you can see, but a lot of it is you can't see, and that's what we're trying to find out and to restructure and to make things better. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's exactly. You like to understand as well as get a better insight on how it works in the industry, especially in large organizations when you're dealing with some of these bigger projects, and then you're dealing with SMEs, you're dealing with MNCs, and and the different struggles that they all have as well.
Yeah,
that's very great. I guess on the side note, apart from just designing the method on, I did sort of want, as I was talking to you, I did sort of consider, when we're thinking of applying the design methodology, about user research, we're talking about your methodologies, and you just speak it. I mean, do you think that this form of thinking comes only at much higher sort of master's level? Do you think it's something that graduates or fresh grads should be working on and looking at dealing with
I think the path to getting good at it is takes time to develop, because it is to be able to interpret behavior is really it's to be able to do that, really to understand what's happening contextually around them. It's really it's a skill, right? But I say that some people already have it when they are able to understand and observe people, to really empathize, understand people, where they're coming from. There's actually different facets to this. There's some people that are really good at doing that empathy part of it. Some people that are really good at translating and designing, prototyping, making stuff as well as part of the design process. And that's a really key, valuable thing. But the thing about translating is being able to translate what users need, not translating what you think. That's one of the key things. Right? Sometimes you can I have an idea of how that works, but I think there's many different skill sets within design in itself, right? But I think the pathway, or when can you start learning, right? I reckon you can start as early as possible. There's no limit to when you can start, and no, it's just by practice that you do it. You go through the methods, you understand it a bit better, and you're like, oh, I should have done that, next a bit better this time, or better last time. I actually think like there's no way, there's no any opportunity to use this process helps you understand the method a bit better. Right? So when I first started hearing about this, I read a book. I read the Art of Innovation. I think Tom Kelly, is it David Kelly or Tom Kelly? Yeah. So that was back then, before design thinking hadn't really come about yet. So it's just he was talking about all these things and stuff like that. Talking about the anthropologists and all these different people, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then the audio was coming up, and that was just then. They were still doing all just really good product design, industrial design and stuff like that. Wow, these guys are pretty good. And then what I did was I just did projects to I did a project with trying to understand how elderly migrants caught public transport. So what I did was I followed this old lady around and saw how she caught public transport, and she couldn't speak a word of English. How does she get by and stuff like that. So even if it's one project that you work with one person, but you go into it and you go, okay, my idea is to understand what their needs are, and then I'll do a range of prototyping things. So what I did was I prototyped some cards that just had Chinese writing in it, so she could understand where she was going, and then it had English text in there, so she could just show someone. Those things that you can start doing. I started doing when I was I was in uni, but to do my honors or at that time. But I see all these little things that you can do to just start your process on design, because I think it's a lifelong journey that people go through, and you get better at it. But I also think that there's anyone can start. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. That's very interesting. Thanks. Anything else you want to share about your design thinking, your experience in design thinking or service design in the industry that might be useful for someone just starting out?
Yeah, another thing I just think is people shouldn't get ahead of themselves. I think be humble when you practice it. Because sometimes when you go out there, we're lucky because we sometimes some of us the field is still very new, right? And it's starting to get applied in different scenarios and stuff like that. So some people can then they pick up the language, they read Harvard Business Review, and they're like, design thinking is the latest and best thing, right? So at the moment it is, right? And then it's caught on and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you really practice it, then you're able to understand and pick out, does this guy really know what he's talking about, or is he really just talking, pretty much just bullshitting? Right. So that's the thing that I like to advise people on. Because we do see a lot of people that just talk a lot of crap, especially in this top 4 space. But sometimes once you start working with someone, then you will really understand how they is it really truly design led, and are they comfortable in being ambiguous in an ambiguous situation where people are going, how do you make sense of all this stuff, how do you make sense of all this data? And that's when being able to navigate through that is the role of that designer, because you should be you should be able to trust the process to be able to help you make meaning of what's happening around you, and also to understand that you can come up with a range of ideas and solutions that you could explore, and really be able to feel not just be comfortable in that situation, but able to thrive in that situation and like learn to embrace it, because you know that you're going to get an outcome out of it. Just keep it on. I'm going to use it later. No, like that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, just one last thing, just to close off. You were saying follow the process and to make sure that things are design led. Right. So just to sum up, how would you define something as design led? How is a project, design led in your eyes? Bye.
Bye. How does the process design led?
Yeah. How would you define something as design led?
My understanding of design and my new understanding of design and what I would call a place informed by understanding people first, and their needs, the value systems of the context of their situation, and being able to translate that, with that need that you discovered, or that insight that you discovered, to being able to translate that into an idea, to then test the idea, to then prototype it, to then iterate that process all the way through to the final product. You can do it from many different stages, right? But my thinking around whatever we design for people, right? So and part of design thinking and anthropology and research is the understanding of context, people, and needs. To then be able to translate that is that design part of it, which is able to generate ideas and prototype and that type of process. The translation of that between the need and this, that's sort of that design process, that human-centered sort of design process, where it's starting from there. So you might have other design processes where you can be hypothesis-led approach. Like you might find this new material and you're like, okay, I'll come up with different types of ways of how we can use this, and then you just come up with all these crazy ideas and moonshots and stuff like that. That's still sort of it's more innovation, like that type of process. But I'm still very closely aligned to that design-led process, where you maybe first try to understand the problem first from a human perspective, to then go, what are the possible solutions out of that, and being able to translate that. So that's how I sort of summarize that. Sometimes you might get the luxury of doing one from one to end to end.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have the luxury just to do the research phase of it, or you do the beginning phase of it, or you do you do the design part of it, where people have done the research and they're going, okay, this is what we think it is. But then you can just go, is it really the case? Because it's still a hypothesis in some sense, because it's still what you think is happening, right? And by prototyping and validating that, you're becoming closer and closer and closer in really understanding, does this thing that I'm creating or that we're doing actually work? And then you'll see for yourself whether it works or not. But great from the front.
Okay. All right, that's good.
Sorry, I've blabbed on for ages.